Exciting news before we jump into today's podcast. So, I actually stopped taking on people for a little bit, obviously, with the birth of my new son, working one on one with me. But I'm really excited to work with some motivated individuals who want to go from good to great and see their full potential in their fitness and their health. So, if you want your fitness, nutrition, accountability, and goal setting personally optimized by me, so you'll be working with me one-on-one, DM me to my Instagram the keyword Josh to @ColossusFit, ColossusFit, and I look forward to working with you one-on-one. I have 4 more spots available in my client load, so I really hope you take advantage of this. If this is something you've been thinking about, I'd love to work with you personally and get you toward your goals, guaranteed. Now into the episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and Most of All Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
And this is Motivation Monday, where we get you fired up and answer questions that you have submitted to us on Instagram. And I just want to say thank you last week for everyone who shared the episode, for all the new followers. I actually jumped into the DMs and was just sending a lot of voice notes out because I got so many kind messages. So it's really cool just hearing about how a lot of different amazing people, perhaps such as yourself, are like, I listen to you on all my commutes and it really fires me up. So stuff like that really does make our day. So if you haven't taken the time to follow us or touch base or ask a question, please do so. We're really active in our DMs. We just love connecting with the amazing community that is you. So hit us up on Instagram @ColossusFit, ColossusFit. But this is Motivation Monday, and we're going to pull out the first question out of the mailbag. And we have 3 killer questions today. So you are in for a treat. It's going to be an incredible episode, and I am so pumped to jump into it with question number 1. What is the optimal amount of exercises per workout? I've heard so many different things. And I think the reason you've heard so many different things is because there are so many different answers and so many different considerations. As me and Kyle always say, it depends. And one thing I always like to touch on is there was a debate in the science-based fitness community about MRV and MED. So MRV is maximal recoverable volume. So what threshold of activity can I do? So perhaps it's 30 sets per exercise where I break down, I can't recover, and the quality of my workouts actually becomes compromised. Whereas MED is an opposite school of thought, and it's like, what is a minimal effective dose? Like, can I get by with 12 sets of volume, still see progress, not fatigue myself, and gradually improve my volume from there? So those are the 2 different schools of thoughts, and science has shown that more volume actually will yield more results. The downside here is it'll only yield more results if you don't get injured, you don't get burnout, and you stay consistent with it. So before you take that advice and you say, I'm going to be in the gym for 3 hours, there can be a cost to that. And one other thing I want to say before I really get into this is not all volume is created equal. Today I noticed adductor and abductor machines in the gym are always taken. And I said on the ride home, Kyle, why do you think that is? And he said, because they're the easiest. And that's the reality. They're easy machines. If I do 5 sets of adductor, that is not even, and if I'm doing it correctly too, like I'm really pushing myself, my intensity and intention is there, that is not going to remotely compare to 1 or 2 sets of heavy squats and near failure. Like compounds and movements that are really taxing are going to absolutely nuke you a lot more than something like that. So once again, especially more hypertrophy based work, like more isolated work rather. So if I'm isolating a bicep with a curl, I'm not going to fatigue myself nearly as much as a squat or deadlift or a heavy lunge or something that does involve multiple muscle groups as well as some cardiovascular ability. So that's where I don't like set guidelines. You'll see a lot of things. It's like, if you're an intermediate lifter, you should be doing 4 to 6 sets per exercise, 3 to 5 sets for each exercise and 4 to 6 exercises per workout. And like, you could be like, okay, this gives me a general idea. But like I said, it's just hard to go by, and I find personal set recommendations are better. So going back to what I said with that MED, I know it sounds complicated, but it doesn't need to be. Analyze what your workouts have looked like in the past. Maybe add up how many sets you're doing. So like, let's say you're doing 12 to 15 sets on average per workout. You're going to be able to kind of understand, okay, this is the threshold I've been doing. And then you can ask yourself, am I progressing in this or am I not progressing in this? And if you're not, perhaps you can add more. The problem with just starting way too high and doing a routine that is way too rigorous for you and your training history, and why I'm not a fan of it is it's hard to adapt out of that. Where do you really go if you're going from 0 to 100? If you can still progress at a lighter threshold of movement, really become optimal in that and improve quality. And the thing I want to end on is quality will be quantity every time in working out. If you're just bopping around the gym, getting no rest, doing really dinky workouts, being like 20 reps shy of your potential, you're not going to get the stimulus you need to create change. And that's why, like, I always joke with Kyle, personal trainers, it's so easy to like sell people on personal training because they'll bring you in there, they'll have you do exercise you've always done, they'll push you a little bit harder than you're used to doing, they'll have you do slow negatives, they'll have you squeeze like crazy. The next day you're gonna be like, oh, I'm dead, because they're really burning out that muscle, they're isolating that muscle, and they're forcing you to a threshold of intensity that you need. And that's where you're better off like utilizing something like an RER or RPE system, so you can actually gauge how much you have left in the tank. So I know that got really technical, and I don't like to get too technical because I know it can throw some people off. But the case in point is start at a threshold that's reasonable and aim to progress from there as you become more of an advanced lifter. And like I said, if you're brand new, start with less. You don't need to be a hero. Learn to do it well, maximize your form, don't burn yourself out, be a little bit excited to go to the gym, and you can kind of work up from there. And just for an example, I like to do a lot of volume in my routines. So I'll be typically about 20 to 30 sets per workout, which is quite high. That's something I enjoy, and my body is able to respond to that. I don't burn out. I have the time to do that. Perhaps you don't have all those factors. If your body doesn't respond to it and you can't recover, you need to do less. If you have less time in the gym, you need to do less, and perhaps look at the quality of what you're doing. So there's so many factors that go into play, and the correct answer is there really is no correct answer. And the last thing you want to do is be having a workout where you're just cramming everything in without any intention. So sometimes even I'll program for clients and they'll say, hey, I don't actually have this much time. We'll amend it. Like, it's a good thing for me to be able to identify that. And sometimes they'll say, hey, like, I'm loving this, I'm hungry, and I'm ready to do a bit more. And that's where we can put more on the plate. And oftentimes, though, that's really a great time to stretch, do abs, do those extra things. But case in point, I hope that was helpful and gave you a rough guideline of what you should be looking at.
It's honestly so different for everyone. And like, even someone who's just getting into the gym, it's going to look so different than someone who's been going for many years. And even like looking back on the things we've learned, like I remember I used to do just like one chest day, which would be, let's say 20 plus sets of chest, just using that as an example. And I realized that I was just too burnt out. So halfway through, everything would become inefficient. My chest was just too fried, I guess you could say, and I just wasn't lifting the way I could. Whereas like when we look at a routine now, we're like, okay, instead of just being that bro doing like single body part exercises aside from legs, because I think you can absolutely crush legs in so many different ways and do tons of sets and tons of volume. We're like, hey, let's break it up. So on Monday, we'll do half chest day. So push, which will have shoulders and triceps as well. You do the most, make the most out of everything there. And then we'll do on Thursday, chest and back. So you're fresh each day and you're doing the absolute best there. And that's where I really not dislike these questions, but I think like so many people get in the weeds of it because they'll do these things like, hey, I did 25 sets of chest, but it's like a lot of it wasn't proper form. A lot of it wasn't proper intensity. Maybe you were burnt out a little bit more. The other thing I see as a big common mistake is people will do all the movements and they'll do all the exercises and do all the volume. But like Josh said, like with the RIR principle, they'll have like 7 reps left in the tank. And if you were to report back, you could check in and say, hey, I did the exercises, I did the volume, like I should be good, but the intensity wasn't there. And the main thing you need for a proper routine is periodization and progressive overload over time. And you can get that in a lot of different ways. So trying not to get too technical here, but that could be an increase of sets, an increase of reps. It could be an increase of weight. Obviously, volume is the most important thing to increase over time. It could be a little bit less rest. It could be better time under tension. So if you're used to just like exploding with every movement, you slow it down. That's a great way to progress with an overload. And the last thing I'll say is like, if it sounds complicated, we'll take care of you. Like Josh is an absolute expert at programming. He programs everything for me. It's been absolutely amazing. And he'll be able to sit back and say, hey, who is the person I'm programming for? What are their measurements? What are their weak points? What do they need? What's their time frame? And there's so many people just not getting the results they deserve because they're just going in the gym doing random stuff, never pushing themselves, not having the right intensity, not having the right volume. We'll take care of you. Josh absolutely will, of course. So message Josh to Instagram at ColossusFit. I promise you it'll be the greatest workout routine you ever do and the best money ever spent. So that's my answer for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And that history is so important. I get some people that come to me and they say, hey, I've got a coach before and the workout routine was just comical. Like I used to be this football athlete and I was used to tearing myself down 8 hours a day. I like training and I don't mind training 90 minutes. Like that gives you something to work with. But everyone is just so different. Every circumstance is so different. And if you're like overwhelmed with the sets example, if you're working out with intention, you're not chatting the whole time, you're not on your phone, time can be a good measure as well. It's like, what can I fit in intelligently in that time frame? And that can be something to analyze, because if I'm doing heavy squats, like 4 sets of heavy squats will take me about 30 minutes full stop, whereas I could do 4 sets of bicep curls probably in about 6 to 7 minutes, and I could do that with adequate rest and adequate stimulation. So that's where not all sets are created equal, and I find that number of sets is incredibly misleading, because 30 sets of leg volume could be ridiculously hard. It could also be pretty easy if I'm just doing calves, adductors, abductors, and things that are a lot quite easier to implement. So that's where I do find that people that get too analytical about this mess themselves up. Sometimes I'll do it as a rough gauge to see how much volume is in when I'm programming, but so much does go into programming. Like I said, it's like music. It needs to have a chorus. It needs to have rhythms where it builds up, rhythms where it breaks down. Like all these different components of lifting are so important, because if you're coming in and you're doing really intense compound work that's exhausting you, and it's very physically exhausting, and it's also very like exhausting in terms of cardio, and you're out of breath, it's a great time to follow that up with some hypertrophy and really isolate movements and go into things that are a little bit easier and a little bit more pump based. And obviously you don't want to be saving big movements at the end of your workout when you're the most fatigued. You want to be aiming to put those in the front. So I do hope that was helpful. Once again, we try not to get too technical, and for something that is a complex topic, we wanted to break it down as best we could. So we do hope you enjoyed that. And that was our primary core question for the day. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into our quotes. And I'm really excited for Kyle to share his.
Yeah, this one came from Josh, so credit to him. But it is, some people have a problem for every solution. So I want you to listen to that over again. Some people have a problem for every solution. So Josh came to me this morning. I was on my laptop and he said that to me, and he's like, take this in. I was like, I had to sit there for a second, because I was thinking of how you should have a solution for every problem, which is typically how it goes. And I'm like, man, this is pretty hard hitting, because we all know those people, and maybe we are that type of person. Maybe we have been that type of person, but there's so many times where there's solutions presented in front of us and we always have a problem for it, right? Let's say I say, hey, why don't you get up at this time and go to the gym? Some people are like, oh, I can't do that. And they'll just always have a problem with it. They'll always shut it down instead of looking for a solution. And I've seen this happen a lot as I've presented a lot of different thoughts and ideas and suggestions for people, especially on their fitness journey. I think that's probably one of the hardest things for some people to face, is when there's a solution in front of them, especially as we're always looking for them, they'll just immediately shut it down, and they'll just like not even entertain it. Essentially, they won't think about it, right? And just a reminder, if you are that person, to try not to be. I know it's easier said than done, but this could be the very thing that is holding a lot of people back, especially nutritionally. Like, there's some people, let's say if I'm like, hey, don't bring, unhealthy foods into the house. Like, their first thing is like, I have kids. Like, there's no way ever. But they don't sit down for a second to think, well, how can I figure out with the cupboards? How can I maybe get my kids to eat healthier? How can I figure this out? Like, it's just so much. It can be so much easier, and a lot of people just hold themselves back because of it. So I thought this was a great quote, something to think about, and hopefully it helps you in some way or another.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard not to be that person, like when you need a solution. Or I even remember as a kid, I'd be like, I'm hungry, and my mom would be like, we have food, and I'd be like, no, and she'd propose like 8 things. No. And unfortunately, we'll do that with different things, with like finding an effective lifting regimen, with a nutrition regimen, having a coach, whatever it may be. Like, this quote really just hit me, because If you notice you're that person, you need to stop it and you need to start becoming solution based and start looking for different ways you can see. It doesn't need to be perfection, but as long as you're moving in the right direction, you're moving in the right direction and you're moving closer towards your goal. So I love that quote. I just, like I said, I was so taken back by how amazing it was. So I'm pumped Kyle made that his quote, because I had one I was really excited about myself. And that is, great things never come from comfort zones. And I love this one in particular because being comfortable is something we think we want till we're in it, and then it's kind of boring. When we're pushing ourselves and working towards our goal and we're in that period of growth, I just find that is so motivating. So if you've noticed you're getting comfortable or getting a little bit soft or maybe backsliding on some of your potential, just know great things don't come from comfort zones. So instead, look to how you can challenge yourself, how you can push forward. And when you do that, I really do just feel like you're in line with your purpose. It's very encouraging. It transfers to other areas of your life. And even our coaching program, we've had people sign up and be like, I'm making more money at my job. I feel more energy with my family. And I really do love to see those things. And actually, I was getting into my thoughts. One thing that I thought was funny, like when I was just looking around, I saw like a whole thread about people saying like, why would you need a fitness coach? You can get everything you want on the internet. And I even remember I had a friend who always had said this. And then when he came into coaching after, he's like, okay, I was so wrong. Like, just having someone where I don't need to overthink what I'm doing, get in my own head about it, where I actually have someone pushing me when I'm like maybe a little bit soft about what I can do to propose new solutions, to help me see new goals. It's absolutely amazing how it is. And even for myself, I've been doing this 10 plus years and I need it. Kyle needs it. Like, having someone on your side is so instrumental, especially someone pushing you directly for your capacity. And when you elevate together, especially if you don't have people around you that are building you up or encouraging you, or maybe everyone's less fit, less healthy than you, when you have someone to call you out on that and say, hey, you can give more, you can be more, you can do more, it's incredibly motivating. And that's what really inspired me to take on 4 more people, because I really get energized helping people. And I think one of my faults is I like to see my clients succeed even more than my own success, but it's something that works out great for the clients because I just want to be part of this journey. And I hate seeing people struggle with their fitness or health, or perhaps their current situation in life. Maybe you just had kids, or you just started school, or you're out of school, or you started a job, or you don't have a job yet. Like, these are all, every single example is a great time to really take the reins and start producing some change. And if you're waiting for this perfect day, it will never come. There's never a perfect time. And you can look back and say, I should have started here, but perhaps at that point there was something big going on in your life. So the best time is now. And once again, I would love to work with you. And I just felt really motivated by this and really want to help you overcome some excuses. So if you want to work with me, once again, just DM me Josh to Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. Only 4 spots for now. I might open some more later, but I can't promise anything. Also, if you sign up now, a really early announcement, but something to be excited for. We're actually starting our Summer Shred Challenge come May 1st, so you would be eligible for that. And that'll give us some time to already get our wheels rolling and get you in a great place. So you can definitely be in a fantastic spot to potentially win that challenge as well, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, every challenge we do is incredible. It's just fun because we're already starting to brainstorm. We're going to get some t-shirts rolling. We're going to get some epic prizes. And every time it's just an amazing group, an amazing group of people just crushing it. And the motivation's at an all-time high. So really, really pumped about that. I'm getting a kickstart on that early myself, been shredding and doing fantastic with that. I'm going to talk about it more in future. I have other thoughts right now, but yeah, it's just like, sometimes it's hard saying no to things, but I've been really trying my best to just like, if I want to fit something in, like do that the next day or whenever I feel like I actually can, instead of just like saying screw it and just like not hitting my macros. And it's something I struggle with, right? Because it's easy to give into temptations all the time. But you know, it brings me into my biggest thought of just like how easy it is to cheat ourselves. And today was in the gym, like we were talking. So we were doing single leg press, and it's a newer movement for me. So I wasn't fully sure what weight to use. And it's funny because sometimes I'm lazy to change the weight that Josh had on. Like I'll keep the heavy weight on just to make it harder for myself to do it. And then it's like, that's just lazy, right? So I caught myself because I could only get 6 reps on the same weight that he was using. And we got to the end of it, and he was asking if I was done and whatnot. And I was like, oh, well, I still have one more because I only did 6 for the first one. So I'm going to do my full reps, full weight, full everything properly. And we were just talking, and it was just like, kind of coming to the conclusion that it's like, so many different ways you can cheat yourself, especially within leg day, right? It's like every little thing. For example, I make that mistake and I say, oh, I'm going to cheat myself a few reps here. And then the next thing, something's taken. So I'm just going to skip the hip thrust today. And then the day goes on and then nutrition comes up and it's comes time for me to hit my macros. And I'm like, oh, well, who cares? I'm going to just have the ice cream cone. I've already cheated in different ways. And a lot of it's subconscious. And most people don't realize how many times those bad habits compound. And especially when it comes to even like leg day, I know we were talking about it recently. We made a reels. It's just like so easy to compound. So just try your best. I know it's not easy. And I still to this day, after building great habits of building great discipline, will have to catch myself to not take those shortcuts because that's just naturally what we want to do. No matter how disciplined you are. If you see Jocko Willink getting up at 4:30 a.m., his alarm clock every single day, I promise you, as easy as it may seem, like there are going to be struggles. They just don't show you it as much. And you have to just be that better and bigger person and try not to take shortcuts, and you'll get better results from that.
Yeah, we posted this to our story today, and we think we're helping ourselves out by taking these shortcuts and doing a half rep or doing a rep shy or skipping an exercise or leaving early to go do something. But you end up paying for that, and you end up paying for that worse and worse because I find when you entertain like weakness, it's much easier to keep entertaining it. So to Kyle's point, he goes half effort in his workout. He's going to go half effort on the podcast, and he's going to go half effort tonight when he wants to have a snack with his macros, and then he's going to stay up a little bit late and then maybe half effort in the morning sleeping in. But when you just commit to yourself and you say, no, I'm operating at a higher level, it's much easier to carry the momentum of that. And it sounds so silly, but it's absolutely a true thing. And I think setting that standard and really aiming to improve the quality, and obviously it's easy when you have a training partner or a coach because you have someone forcing you to do that, but it's a good reminder you need to catch yourself if you aren't giving it your all. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into a client who has been absolutely crushing it. So who do we have for a client shout out?
So this week we have Brooke. I know for a fact she's listening to this episode right now because she just consumes everything. So we couldn't be more happy for her overall success. She's lost over 100 pounds so far with Coach Jason and just been crushing it. Like every single challenge we do, she's there. She's ready to give it her all. And it's just an amazing accomplishment because to lose that much weight, you need a full identity change. You need to become a different person. What you used to do, you can't continue to do. You need to start to look for different solutions and different ways to solve problems, working off of my quote earlier. And that's exactly what Brooke does. And it's amazing because she's still investing in herself, and she's never going to go backwards for herself, for her family, for everyone around her. And I'm just so passionate about this one. Like, obviously, I'm passionate about every transformation, but it's just amazing to see someone who's so awesome, who's showed up, who's, won different parts of our challenges in the past, and is just continuously seeing success. So huge shout out. 100 plus pounds. It might even be 120, 130. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's just absolutely incredible. And make sure to check out our Instagram every Monday. So what we do is we post the transformation, we post the tips that has helped the person. And similar to what I was saying last week, where it's easy to overlook the basics. Like there's some people who see tips and be like, oh, I know that, or, I'm too good for that. But it's like, if you really look into it and see what has helped someone, it could also help you if you are potentially struggling. So we also share the testimonial that they have, and we're just really proud about this one. So give her some love on Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. We're so proud of you, Brooke.
Yeah, shout out to Brooke. And one thing I also had in my thoughts, I was reading to this principle about how usually for the first threshold, like if you want to get to the top 20% of something, it only takes a certain threshold of effort, but it takes like significantly more effort to get from the top 20% to the top 5%, and then from 5 to 1%. And that's where like usually you have to become more elite, have more sacrifice, more narrowing in. Like I could become a better runner pretty quickly by just training from my base point. From there, I could train more, but I'm still not even going to be remotely close to the top 20%. And I think it's a great reminder for fitness too. It's easy, I think, to be okay in fitness and to be kind of fit and have a little bit of a flow going. But if you do want to become more elite, you really need to lock in and give it your all. And it's often not a metric of not knowing, similar to what I said about my friend earlier about how he said there's so much information for free. Like all of us know too, if we want to have a lot of money, we need to spend less than we need to save more than we spend. We need to be diligent. We need to invest in compound interest consistently over long time horizons and not make emotional decisions. And it's the same with fitness, but it's hard when it comes to into those moments, like Kyle said, everyone's getting a cookie. He's cutting. He wants that cookie. It's easy. Oh, I'm just going to have this cookie. And then that snowballs into other decisions. Then he goes, maybe my cut isn't that important to me. And then he feels like he can't cut and he feels upset by it. And it's really funny how simple it can be, but that's where like accountability is so powerful, to Kyle's point. And even just for Brooke here, like continuing to succeed, like having someone on your side, having someone to actually implement this for you is so big. And we get so passionate because we talk about it a lot, but Kyle's cutting, I'm doing like a little mini cut thing here, and you realize it more than ever. And I think even seeing Kyle just dialed in with his cut, it makes it easy for me because it's not even a discussion. I'm like, okay, I know he's going to be ironclad, so it's easy for me to be ironclad. Where if every time Kyle's like, yo, you want to go get a cookie, you want to do this, that, the other, it'd be much harder for me, right? So have someone on your side who's going to push you up. And whether you take advantage of that opportunity to work with me personally, or you get a friend to text to hold you accountable and be inspired by, to say, I'm going to listen to podcasts every day in the car to get my mind right. Like find something to really lock you in and get you inspired. But now we're going to jump into our second question, which is, what is the best to eat before a workout? And I love this question because I remember looking back, like I'd get picked up from like daycare as a kid. And I remember my mother would have like a big bowl of pasta for me ready to go. And I'd be playing hockey in like 30 minutes. And I had no issue doing that. And I would always do that. And I know other people that'd be like, I would be so sick if I were to have that much food right before. And it even makes me think of The Office when Michael says he's carving up with the fettuccine Alfredo, I think, and he's eating a bunch of it and he gets super sick from it. And I think a lot of people have these hesitations of like, should I eat? I want energy, but also I don't want to eat too much and not feel myself. So I love this question and I have my thoughts. So I guess I'll go ahead and start with that. So the first thing to me is time frame. So obviously you want food in your system when you lift. I know some people like to train fasted, and if that's something you can do, power to you. There's nothing wrong with that, but I find most people can't. I don't know what the percentage would be, but I've had a lot of clients, especially when I personal trained, who would get a little lightheaded all of a sudden. They'd never had that before, and I'd say, well, like, what's going on? Did you eat? And they're like, no, I haven't eaten anything. And it's like, well, there you go. And usually it's food or hydration that really ends up messing you up, because when you work out, your body's burning glycogen, it's utilizing this fuel, and it needs energy from somewhere. And if you're depriving it of that before a session, you're limiting yourself. But at the same time, oftentimes you don't have a long enough window to get in enough food. So for me, what I usually recommend is a carb source is a great thing to have intra-workout. It's funny, even powerlifting meets where we would need more carbs, more energy, we'd have fun things like sugary candies and different things. And that's where powerlifting culture gets this kind of weird focus, because you kind of have this burst strength and you can kind of sneak in a little bit of extra carbs, if you will. But for most people, that wouldn't be realistic because that wouldn't support their nutritional goals. So what I'll recommend, if you have a really tight time frame, like you're going right first thing in the morning, just really basic, really simple, really gentle on your stomach. So something like a banana is such a great opportunity. You're gonna get some easy carbs. It's not a ridiculous amount of calories. That plus some water will at least give you something to burn through. And if you find you're getting lightheaded or you're deathly hungry and you can't focus in your workout, you can actually look to eat more food. If you have more time, like an hour to 2 hours plus, a full meal is obviously going to be best. And with a snack or a meal, you're obviously going to want to be aiming for a balance of nutrients. So carbs obviously are really good to utilize in the gym, but if we're in a balanced diet and we're not doing excessive training, you're not going to need an excess of carbs. I've used the example in the past, like an NFL player will need more carbs than I ever will. Yes, I train hard. Yes, I'm killing it in the gym for 90 minutes, but outside of that, I do some walks and I'm pretty sedentary. I'm not an elite athlete. So for me, I don't actually need an excessive amount of carbs. I just need to be satiated and I need to have a decent amount of nutritional density just from a balanced diet. So for me, I'll look for a carb source. I'll make sure I'm getting a little protein in each meal, which is also going to help me feel more full, help with recovery, and it's going to help support me hitting my protein goals that day. And then fats can also be another great, amazing thing to have before your workouts, because it'll actually burn a little bit slower. It'll keep you full potentially a little bit longer, depending on the type of fat you do have. So that is something to consider as well. So for myself, I train at 9:30. I have my breakfast about an hour and a half before. That's where I feel best. I feel it digest. I don't feel lethargic, and I feel like I'm in a good spot where I have a lot of energy. I can complete that workout without any of those issues, and I can also complete it without being hungry. Because if you're hungry and you're rushing out of the gym to eat, that is also a detriment. So that is my simple answer. And like I said, if you're in a huge rush too, smoothies are another great option because it's very easily digestible because it's in liquid form. The things that are going to be more complicated and really burn you down are like really oily, fatty foods, really heavy foods, really foods that are just going to really jack up your glycemic index. So these are all things you want to be careful of. And sometimes simple carbs too will leave people feeling very lethargic. So if you have very basic things as well, that's something to consider because you will burn through it quite fast. So unless you're like running a marathon or something, you don't really need like liquid gel carbs before your workout. So those are my thoughts, and hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I think some people like on two different ends, they make the common mistake of like either having too much. So like I love my Chipotle bowl. We'll have it every day, and that's after our workout. But if you were to give me that before my workout, I would feel sluggish. I'd feel slow. I'd feel probably a little bit lazy. Maybe just, there's beans in there. Probably wouldn't feel too great. Like you have to really just do a lot of trial and error, truthfully. And then on the other end, I think if you just don't eat anything, like there are some people, don't get me wrong, if you roll out of bed, you wake up and you go to work out and it's like pretty immediate and you ate beforehand, like the night before, and you still have everything in your system and you feel great with that. There is definitely a small percentage that's totally cool with that. Now, I did want to cover the whole fasted training because I've covered it on a YouTube video and it's pretty out there where a lot of people believe there's tons of benefits. I really think there's honestly no benefits aside from maybe helping you preserve more calories for later. Like let's say if you get up early and you don't eat and you don't want to eat and you're not hungry and you don't think about food and it doesn't affect your workouts, power to you. Like there's no problem at all. Like you are totally fine there. It's not going to ruin your results. You'll save calories for after. You can eat post workout. That's totally cool. But I think most people will benefit from 200 to 500-ish calories beforehand, and I think they'll be able to have more energy and you're going to push longer and you're going to have more strength, and that will be the most people. And I really want to encourage you to try different things like that Greek yogurt power bowl that we shared on Instagram recently. That's about, it could be between 300 to 6 something depending on how you make it. Amazing. Like I wouldn't want to change it. I feel incredible from that. Some people may not love it, right? So try different things and pay attention to how you feel. Like people will try different things and they'll just be like, oh, I'm just giving it a shot, but they never are aware of like what's going on and how they feel within that day. And maybe you'll notice like you're 30 minutes in and you have a big pit in your stomach and it's holding you back. It's like, all right, we might need a bit more food beforehand and, maybe cut calories later in the day. Like paying attention and trying these things makes such a big difference on your journey.
Incredibly well said. And that's one thing I'll also recommend to some clients is if you really don't have time in the morning to eat and you're training in and around the morning, utilize the night of the day before. Obviously you'll weigh in a little bit heavier, but you will have more food in your system that obviously you can use. And that's where all this is so nuanced and it is so case by case because everyone is extraordinarily different. And perhaps you are a marathoner who's also lifting because you're an animal and you're trying to be a hybrid athlete. Like you could perhaps need more like intragels and different options to keep you at the caloric amount you need. So there are a lot of things to consider, but I feel like the best thing of all is trial and error. See where you feel the best, what keeps you the most grounded, which balances you, what sits with you well. Like I said, in the past, I don't know anymore, but pasta felt fine to me. And if it felt fine too, there's also that mental component. If I feel fine, I can operate fine. Perhaps was it the most optimal? Probably not, but it's hard to live your life doing everything that's most optimal. You need to do what fits within your schedule and be realistic and be consistent. But for our final question we have today, it's quite simply, how can I improve my flexibility?
So great question. And I'm going to start with one of the most important things that most people won't think about is actually full range of motion training. So there's been studies and I've looked into this for some of my myth busting episodes, but a lot of people think they should be just doing tons of static stretching and that's what's going to help them out. Now, there obviously are benefits from that, but I think a lot of people forget about full range of motion training. And to me, I do believe like if you were to have a certain amount of time within your day to improve flexibility, I truly believe like strength training, full range of motion. And I keep stressing full range of motion because if you're doing like half reps on everything and squats and everything you're doing, that's not going to really help at all. And you're going to be cheating yourself. But to me, the strength training will far outweigh like, a yoga session or something just in that nature where you're just doing some static stretches. So don't get me wrong, there can be some benefits from that, but I wanted to start with the thing that most people don't think about. The other thing I'm a really big fan of is just like certain mobility movements. So even I posted the other day, like 90-90s, like so incredible for your hips, opening them up, keeping them loose. Like most people are used to sitting all day. Their hips are tight, their back, like even myself, I'm leaning forward a bit too much, like probably not great for my posture and whatnot. I'll fix that after. But it's one of those things where when you add in like mobility movements and even I will say like some sort of deep tissue stuff does really break down those really tight areas to help you improve your range of motion and be more mobile and be more flexible. So whatever way it is that you can get that, obviously a massage will be number one. A massage gun is a great second. A great runner up. You can use a lacrosse ball to open up any areas. Like even if I took a lacrosse ball and I use it on my glutes, that can help me become more flexible, even though you may not realize it. A foam roller is a great option. So I will say, like, these types of things, like deep tissue work in whatever way you can kind of keep it consistent on top of full range of motion strength training, to me will be the greatest way to improve flexibility. And that's just my honest and most important answer for that specific question.
Yeah, that is so well said. And a lot of people tend to forget that working muscles through a full range of motion will actually improve their mobility, but it's exactly what you're doing. You're putting it under tension through a full range of motion, have it operate there well. So even though I lift heavy and a lot of people say, oh, you're going to be stiff, I actually have maintained quite good flexibility, and I've been quite slack with my stretching. I couldn't tell you the last time I did it, unfortunately, and it's still absolutely good to static stretch. And if you can make a point to do that, I think that is great. But I would really emphasize full range of motion training over just the stretching. And whereas a lot of people will say, oh, I'm just going to stretch, and things like yoga, things like any direct stretching protocol are going to work fantastically to actually help you improve your flexibility, so you can implement those. You just don't want those to come at a cost of your training and things that are actually going to change your physique. So I really just agree with everything Kyle said, and think he really nailed that one on the head. So it was a really fun episode. I know this was a little bit higher level, so we do hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're like, bring it on, we're here for higher level podcasts, let us know on Instagram, tell us, and we'll definitely take some more time to make some more amazing episodes like these. If you want to work with me one-on-one, I got 4 spots till they fill up, and I really would love to work with you and get you from good to great and have you crush your summer shred challenge as well. So hit me up on Instagram with the keyword Josh, and I look forward to seeing some killer results together. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.